Vishnu-jana. And then I was Vishnu-jana for an hour. And then someone came and said, there's already a Vishnu-jana. Your name is BHURIJANA. So I really wanted to hear Prabhupada say my name. I wanted to hear it coming from his mouth. So at the end of, after a few days, it was on a Wednesday, I remember that, he held a class in his room. And I asked him, what is my name? And he said, BHURIJANA. And I heard it, but then he looked at me, why are you asking me this? That's what I got from his glance. But then it took me quite a long time to understand the meaning of BHURIJANA. And because Bhuri is actually a name of Vishnu. It means heavy. So or opulent. So BHURIJANA means the devotees. The devotees. But then I saw in one verse, Tavakatam Vitam Taptajivanam Bhuridajana. So Bhuri means heavy there, so that means giving. And this is basically it's Krishna Katha, Tavakatam Vitam, the Amrita of Krishna Katha. So that part. I would like to be able to do that too. So okay, I think we're ready. Now remember, and I found this because I taught for many years, and I also studied the art of teaching, and I also taught teachers for a while, and I'll give you a hint if you're going to be a teacher. And before you chant your job, or practically speaking, before you do anything, is that you have to remember what you're doing, the purpose of what you're doing right now, a refocusing of the consciousness. So what is the mission or the assignment that I've asked you to do after I put on this short lecture segment? What are you supposed to be doing? What is it? Yes, but before you answer the question, what do you have to do? You have to listen very carefully to what Prabhupada is saying. And the question I'm going to ask you is what? Who will say?
Say loudly.
What do you remember? And even, yes, thank you. And even more than that, more than even what do you remember, but what strikes you in Prabhupada's words? Now the lecture segment is only 3 minutes and a little more than that. Let's see if technology will serve our purposes. Here we go.
Beginning of spiritual knowledge is to know what is this body and who is the owner of the body. That is the beginning of spiritual knowledge. When Krishna began speaking about Gita and Arjuna accepted to become his disciple, Shishastyam, Sadhima, Prabandam, as he said. So Arjuna was bewildered whether you fight in the battle or not. So the question was not solved by friendly discussion. Therefore, Arjuna surrendered to Krishna as a Shisha's disciple, not as friend. So, as spiritual master, as teacher, immediately Krishna chastised Arjuna. Asatyanam Sattam Pratyavadam Savasas. You are talking like a very learned man, but you are lamenting on a subject matter on which no Pandit, learned man, laments. Tata Pandita. He very mildly chastised. Indirectly, he said that you are not Pandita, you are a fool, because you are lamenting on this body. Now so that the Pandita, those who are Pandit, those who are learned, they do not consider this body as very important. They are Pandit. But at the present moment, everyone is thinking this body as the most important. So, according to Bhagavad Gita, not according to Vedic understanding, anyone who is stressing too much on the body, they are go-kara, asses and cows, and animals. What is the speak of becoming Pandita? But at the present moment, the whole educational system is concentrated on this body, how to keep this body comfortable. Spiritual knowledge does not mean that you neglect your body. No, that is not the idea. But the most important subject matter of understanding is the soul of Brahman, Brahma Gyan, Adhata Brahma Jigyasa. So far the body is concerned, that has been taken care in so many lives. In animal life, in bird's life, beast life, aquatic life. Now, Adhata Brahma Jigyasa. This is the Vedanta instruction. Now we should take care of the soul of the Brahma, Aham Brahman. This is required. That is spiritual knowledge. Unfortunately, for want of spiritual knowledge, for want of studying Bhagavad Gita properly, we are simply taking care of this temporary body that is being explained.
Okay, now here is the exam. What do you remember, or even more than that, what that Prabhupada said struck you? Struck you meaning touched you, or made an impact in your mind. Yes, first. What's your name, Prabhu? Yes, Prabhu.
Prabhupada said that...
Oh, you wrote it down. Okay, trained student. Yes.
Spiritual knowledge does not mean to neglect body.
Yes.
This is what...
Yes. So spiritual knowledge does not mean to neglect the body. Thank you very much. Anyone else? Yes, Prabhu.
We have been taking care of body for so many lives, and today's present system is just focusing on the body only.
Yeah.
That is what is like.
Yeah. Thank you. Anyone else remember anything?
We should focus on the spiritual purpose of our life. Since we are given this body, and with this body we can focus on that purpose. That's why that Advaita Brahma Jigyasa, that actually means since you are given this body, not neglecting this body also, we should focus on the spiritual knowledge.
Yes. Good summary. Thank you. What's your name?
Premna.
Premna. Anyone else? Yes.
Krishna says to Arjuna, you are speaking like a very learned man, but since you are concentrating on the body, so you are a fool.
Yeah. I always find that very interesting. Especially, I mean, not that, but all that everyone said isn't interesting. It's very powerful. But the first duty that the teacher performed in relationship to his student, because previously their relationship was basically Saka, friend. But then when Arjuna surrendered, does anyone remember that Sanskrit verse that Prabhupada quoted? Anyone remember? Now, I can't solve this dilemma, this problem, just by myself or on the intellectual platform or on the emotional platform, and not by our friendly relationship only. And now I want to hear from you as your disciple. So the first thing Prabhupada said Krishna did, and he did it, Pragyavadam Trabhashase, you are speaking as if you were a learned person, but learned persons don't say what you say. So indirectly he's saying you're not learned or you're foolish, you have no knowledge. And then Prabhupada's comment was, this was the first thing he did, it's the duty of the teacher to chastise the disciple. Now, I always find that interesting, and I'll ask you the question is, why is that his duty? Why is it the duty of the teacher to chastise the disciple on the spiritual path? I mean, if your C++ teacher chastises you and says you're a fool, it's going to be out of place. It's not appropriate even, and it's not going to be taken well. But why is it the spiritual teacher's duty to chastise the disciple? Yes.
By that, the false pride gets crushed and one becomes humble.
Yes, that's exactly half correct. But it's very, very good, very good. Thank you. Have you ever been strongly chastised by a teacher or a person in a senior position who you are convinced has concern for your welfare?
Yes,
and out of affection you've been chastised?
Yes,
and how did you feel?
At that very point it is painful.
Yes, it's very painful. And because Prabhupada one time, more than once, but he chastised me so strongly. And it is not pleasurable at all. It's extremely painful because you care. Yeah.
It's painful at that time, but then later on, when after some months or years, when I see myself that I am safeguarded and I am practicing Krishna consciousness, then I reflect back that because I got that chastisement, therefore I am surviving today.
Yeah. Because false pride has to be removed so that we can hear properly and it can enter properly into our consciousness. The pride means I know everything. And as long as our consciousness is focused on the body and its pleasure, we don't know everything. And we are foolish. And the entirety of contemporary civilization, and Prabhupada almost always when he would say civilization, meaning today's world, he would say so-called civilization. And then if someone challenged that, why do you say so-called civilization? We've made so much progress. Prabhupada would answer with such things as saying that, is it progress to kill your children in the womb? Is that progress? This is progress towards animal life, and that no one even questions it. Not no one, but that the general society doesn't even question it, means that the standards of morality and proper behavior are becoming like animals. Or sometimes he would say that the progress of modern civilization is like the progress of old age. It brings you closer to death. And where does most of the technology that we enjoy today, where does it actually come from? Where it filters down to the common people from where?
Universities.
The universities, but who? Yes, the military. In other words, they designed some kind of a great weapon that's so advanced it can kill everyone in the world. This is the type of advancement, and then they'll say this is for the purpose of peace. The weapon that's going to kill everyone is for the purpose of peace, and everyone just goes. And the most intelligent people, they become employees. And what's the relationship between the employee and the employer? Just naturally, the psychology is that you naturally want to please your employer. So you have to compromise your integrity, or that's the tendency. And in previous ages, the brahmanas, or the most intelligent segment of society, they would never accept employment. They would keep their intelligence always independent, because they knew that not only their life was at stake, but they knew that the whole society's direction was at stake. So, to gain knowledge, especially, or any knowledge, especially on a spiritual level, one has to give up the mood that one knows everything. It's obvious, or else how can, if the cup is full, if I know everything, one can't put anything else in the cup. And therefore, Krishna immediately called Arjuna a fool, because his activities, his consciousness, his mood was based simply on the bodily concept of life. His judgment of what was good and bad, of what he should do and what he shouldn't do, was simply on the bodily concept of life, which means temporary. And this is the essence of, or foundational principle of Vedic society, is that yes, we have a body, and yes, we should not neglect the body. But if we think that the body, which we have a temporary relationship with, is everything, if we think that's everything, that means we think that temporary benefit is going to be everything, or temporary loss is going to be everything. And no one will argue the point that the body is temporary. But the point that people lack conviction on is that I, the soul, me, am eternal. That I am eternal. And that I've passed through so many bodies. We'll discuss this more tonight. I don't want to speak too much on this point tonight. I mean, right now, we'll discuss it tonight. But I would like to read one verse, or did you, excuse me, someone else had a comment of what struck them and what said. Raise your hand if you have a comment. Yes, did you want to say something, Prabhu? Did you want to say something?
No, no. I guess my point was already said.
What was it?
That
because the question was, what struck you personally?
This body has been taken care of in all the previous lives in the lower species, and this human life is not meant for it.
Yes. What is the difference between animal existence and human existence? What is the difference? The animal just simply doesn't have developed intelligence and consciousness. Sometimes they have obviously animals have consciousness. If you walk near a dog and he doesn't, and he smells you and he doesn't see very well, but if he likes you, he'll do one thing and he'll react in a different way. If he doesn't like you, if he perceives that you're a threat, or if you go to Vrindavan, you'll see the monkeys. They have consciousness, and even the lowest animals have consciousness. Life means, the symptom of life is consciousness. But human life has a special facility, and that's developed intelligence, self-consciousness. Consciousness of myself as different from my environment. But most human beings are not acting on the human level, but they're acting on the animal level. And just using their great intelligence, powerful intelligence, to act like sophisticated, polished animals, and thinking that's the purpose of life. But what is the fault in that? It's temporary. And the promise of modern civilization, so-called civilization, is don't worry, in time through science, we will make you eternal. It's subtly there. And I've even heard Nobel Prize winners not say directly that, but soon we'll be able to create life. Soon we'll be able to. Then we can replace your kidneys, and we can replace your heart, and we can replace your knees, and we can replace it. But where am I in the middle of all that? If I say, point to you, where will you point? If I say, because we usually think, oh, this is me, so then point to you in it. We'll point to you. Where do you exist in this? Where? Where do you think you exist in this? Well, point. Yes, so you pointed here. Most, I think, people that I teach will point to here. And interestingly enough, a cultural phenomenon in Japan, has anyone, you spent time in Japan?
Yeah.
You know where they point to? They point to here. Well, if you cut off your nose, you can't smell very well, but you still exist. And if your heart is transplanted, you still exist. Where are you in it? And who are you in it? So you're not these different bodily parts. So anyway, that's obviously a different discussion than we're having now. So I wanted to read one verse from the Bhagavatam, which points in the same direction that Srila Prabhupada was saying. Dharmas vanustita pungsan vishvaksena katasyat notpadeyed yadira ratim sramak eva hikevalam. The occupational activities, or the activities that one does according to his position in society, are only so much useless labor. They don't bring any result, practically speaking, any true result, if they do not provoke attraction. Vishvakshena katasya takata. If they do not provoke or invoke attachment and attraction to hear about Krishna, about the Supreme Lord, Vishvakshena, the Supreme Lord. Now this is such a radical statement. This is right in the beginning of the Bhagavatam, and this has nothing to do, in one sense, with advanced consciousness. This is just simply pointing out that human life has a purpose. And it's not to just make the temporary comfortable. Human intelligence is meant to discriminate between the self, which is eternal, and the body, which is temporary. But as Prabhupada said about the educational system today, what educational system is pushing this point? That human life has a purpose, other than to try to enjoy the senses, basically. And is it possible for one to be satisfied on the sense level? What's your experience? It just, the Bhagavad Gita says that that it's sense pleasures. It is like or calm. It is like fire, and the more fuel you put onto a fire, well, we all know what happens. It just expands and increases. Rather than one's desires being satisfied, one becomes more and more dissatisfied. So we want a position in society. We want to get wealth, and we want this and we want that. But how much wealth will it take before we say, oh, that's enough, I don't need any more? And it's such an interesting difference between Western so-called civilization and Vedic culture. Who will you give it to?